Amazing. Well, thank you for the ones who have joined. Early birds, thank you for having this time to talk about AI. It's a topic that I think everyone has in their ear 24/7 nowadays. But for me, the reason we're having this conversation today, and hopefully, you guys can take some practical, useful takeaways to apply with your teams to have further conversations after this. But for me, 2025 was, I think with everyone trying to catch up. It was a year of trying to catch up with everything that was going on in AI, in, the new things that were coming up every week. A lot of, I think, overwhelming sensation of trying to stay ahead. Obviously, we're in technology, but I think everyone in business in general, it was a sentiment that they had. So I really wanted to talk about, this topic about what's real, what's noise, what should we actually do as a business that's, practical and has a structure to it in this AI landscape. So for those who don't know me, my name is Alessandra Papini, direct sales director at Scopic.
And I'm joined by Adele.
Yes, the product manager, Adele Dodechna here at Scopic.
Yeah, and with Adele, we work together, both sales and product teams, very closely to build AI POCs for clients. We've been experimenting with AI now for several years. And I wanted to bring Adele in the conversation because I want to have the voice of the customer really being heard here. And she has, on foot, on the ground experience working with clients in the space. So hopefully, we can delve into the details of what we've experienced on the customer side. So yeah, we're gonna move forward.
Yes, and at the end of the session, of course, we're gonna have a question and answer session. You can submit your questions in Q&A within Teams. We're gonna discuss them after we're done. We will try to address as many questions as possible, but if we're not able to cover some of them, we will definitely follow up afterwards by email. And at the very end, there's a little surprise. There's going to be a giveaway for all the attendees, so stay tuned.
Great. And what are we going to cover? Essentially, I want to first start with this whole conversation around the AI bubble. What is it? Is it real? And sort of like dig into the hype versus reality of what AI transformation is really about. Why a lot of AI projects, quote unquote, fail, right? And why the foundations matter so much when you're starting to think about AI, and what should be your next AI initiative for this year if you haven't begun with AI, or just in general what your next project should be. And then where do AI agents fit in all of this? If there's still a place for them, and what exactly are the best use cases for AI agents? So this whole AI bubble conversation, I think, started in the better half of last year. You saw it in the news, in the stock market. General sentiment of business was, a lot of fear and anxiety. You saw massive layoffs. I mean, we just had that this past week as well. Tech companies, really making drastic decisions in the way that they're going to operate. Stock market was really volatile, just with, hedge funds, investors selling Nvidia stock, others buying and stockpiling on data and infrastructure. So the race is definitely a very roller coaster type of race, I would say. So of course, in business terms, I think a lot of the clients that we were talking with, and people in general who are, having this AI conversation in the table, is about uncertainty of what to begin with, what to do it. Do we do it now? Is it safe? Am I going to have a return on investment? So all of that made me, discuss obviously with my team and say we need to focus on education. Clients are as more confused than even we are on what to do, and I think expertise is where we need to place ourselves in terms of how ready can a client be, how we can help them be better prepared for this, right? And I don't know, Adele, I mean, from what you've heard as well, I mean, this is just part of what we're having to deal with now with clients is talking them through all this, forest of options that we have.
Exactly.
It's a really forest and a jungle of things that we can do now. And your role, right, as product manager is to helping them discover through that forest how to even begin, right?
Yeah, I like how you use forest against the bubble. Completely different things, but at the same time, it gives you the sense of clients being lost and not understanding what to do, not understanding how to strategize, especially when it comes to the bubble. It's something big and something unknown, and there's a lot of risk. So when you invest, you want to see that return on the investment that you do. However, we know that even though there is a bubble, we know that this thing is here to stay. As you and I have been discussing every day in our daily basis, we need to make sure that the businesses still understand that this thing is here to stay. So they need to start preparing. They need to start having the foundation. They need to start looking at their data that they have. They need to start looking at the alignment within the team. They need to understand that this thing will be a part of their lives, be that business life or regular life, personal life. So they need to have the the confidence to be ready and to take that on, even though there is a bubble.
Yeah. And I think paired to that was the fact that I think most of our, let's say, early adopter clients were very enthusiastic, and we're very much into boom, 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 let's make it happen. So speed. But I think what was sometimes missing in some of these cases was readiness and strategy. So that also comes into play. And what we're going to touch later is why a lot of these projects did not have the return on investment that, CEOs are now obviously caring for. So I think the three main things are in this whole AI bubble concept is um, even if there is a bubble, AI is here to stay. There's no doubt about it. So what can we do about it as companies is really try and be as ready as we can. And we're going to give you some insights as to what a good foundation looks like. And then trying to win the race is not who has the flashiest toy first, but really starting with the strategy and also being early with the bottlenecks. And so we're going to touch just in a few slides now about infrastructure and how, this is now the new bottleneck in 2026. So just a brief overview of what what we're going to see. So yeah, I think overall, the main message here was from all the projects that we've developed in the past 2 years, and obviously now the clients that are coming to us with AI concepts and ideas, it's like, yeah, enthusiasm is great, but we're really trying to focus on readiness. And the way that we've approached that is through a consultative approach, having an AI vision roadmap catered for clients to really map out where they are currently as a business in a maturity level in order to adopt AI in a way that is aligned to their business goals and reality. So we saw, and maybe Adele, you can touch more on that, is we saw a lot of teams with clients that we were dealing with that really lacked data labeling, data structuredness, volume even. So we were getting a lot of blocks in discovery phase, which is the phase that every software development project starts with. And we had to pause. Teams were waiting for data from the clients. So I think the main thing I have learned in the past 3-4 months has been the importance of data readiness and how much we need to stress, even with clients who are large enterprise level sometimes, is how to make sure that the AI that we're going to build is aligned to where the data is. And if that's not the case, then we start with the data first. Maybe you can share, Adele, some of your experience in that.
Well, with regards to experience, and as it says on the slide as well, enthusiasm is all over the place. People are really excited about the AI, even though sometimes they don't understand what it is exactly, or maybe they're referring to automation processes, But at the same time, you're right. People are very enthusiastic without understanding that the homework has to be done. there's no AI strategy without the data strategy. So you need to make sure that you, first of all, have the data, and then you need to see that it's unified. You need to bring the structured and unstructured together. You need to bring your source, your foundation together in order to make sure that you actually can build on top of it. We did have some cases with the clients when, we started the project and we were very enthusiastic and we were ready to get it going, but at the same time we would realize and hit a blocker in terms of realizing that the data is not there. It's there, but we can't really do much with it because it's just not structured the way we need it in order to achieve the goal that we want to achieve and have the benefits of the project that we're trying to implement.
Yeah, for sure. And we've seen it we've seen it just many times, right? This is like a big problem, and maybe some of the PMs in the call will relate to this problem for sure.
Possibly, yes.
Yeah. Which leads to the second problem, which I think is more of not a problem, it's just something to be mindful of because it's becoming a constraint on the larger scale of the industry at the moment. I mean, you have the big tech companies and providers, building data center expansions, like, they're buying Coca-Colas in the supermarket. Like it's definitely a message to me of, hey, organizations need to bet early on infrastructure access and capture, in terms of competitive advantage before there's a capacity constraint. And I mean, this week just Gemini was having some exploding, usage on after they shipped Gemini 2.5, and basically they experienced like a double usage in just 5 months. So they, hit capacity. So, this is a real problem if you're thinking about an AI solution that's just larger in scale or will be larger in scale. You need to plan ahead on how you're going to be equipped to handle that from an infrastructure standpoint. It's curious because I actually had a call today with a team member who's working on an AI project for a orthodontic application. And they were discussing with me how, they were being blocked by a GPU limit constraint in the Azure environment. And so they had delayed, by 3 weeks the deployment. And I was like, really? Like, is this real? Can you just talk with Microsoft and, have more capacity for it? And so I think for me, the message is thinking about it with, if you have an internal team or a partner, obviously like Scopic, who can help you plan ahead and make sure that you have, microservices, you have all the basic infrastructure ready so that when you're building, the layers up, you have the capacity to scale and to build as much as you want. You're having a canvas that is going to allow you for all the experimentation and innovation that you want. But it starts with the basics, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes. As you mentioned, that the capacity constraints are very essential in this day and age with AI. And everyone is fighting and racing for the quickest agent or the quickest solution, the fastest tools, and the ability to cover as many users simultaneously as possible. But we also talk about very big players in this particular segment. For example, OpenAI, I heard, is about to invest $1 trillion dollars into infrastructure. So we are talking very big money. And at the same time, we also talk about our clients when they need to look at this. Of course, they're not going to spend as much money, but they do need to make sure that if such big players are looking into infrastructure problems, they want to minimize the risks in terms of the capacity, then it means that the smaller businesses also need to take a look at that and make sure that they're ready and they plan in advance and strategize in advance to make sure that they benefit going forward.
Yeah. And again, it's just not something that usually teams will think about. Like even when we were, developing some of our internal projects at Scopic, it's not like a topic that gets discussed early on. And so I think the message here is have this in the conversation, in the planning phase as early as you can. And another, I think, interesting topic, or I guess hype item as well, is, a lot of clients were sharing with us some, stories about, hey, they're trying to sell me this, but it's really automation. It's not really AI. So what is AI? What is automation? And so I think for me, the way I think about AI transformation is having workflow businesses rethought, re-engineered, everything from customer experience, decision making, culture, governance, the whole shebang. It's not just using a tool, it's really re-engineering the way you work a specific process, domain. And that is, to me, the where the real transformation happens. And so we're gonna delve on this deeper with Adele, but I think for what was very clear to me this year was, okay, we definitely need to give clients a better understanding of what is their maturity level in terms of the different areas where AI has touching points, right? And those 5 areas are data, which we already discussed, infrastructure, but also strategy, leadership alignment, aligning expectations on ROI, governance, legal, ethics, risks on data privacy, security, talent and skills. And so I think our goal now is getting the client a map of where they're sitting before the AI transformation, and have a comparison of, okay, well, if this is our snapshot of where we are right now, how are you going to be, in 1 year, in 5 years, based on this? And we created a framework, which maybe Adele can share more on, which gives it, a much more simplistic view, I think, of what it can be.
Yeah, so the framework that you mentioned is on the screen, the crawl, walk, and run framework. And what we do with our clients when we're in the consultation stage is that we take all those 5 pillars and we evaluate where the client actually is. So we'll look at the tech stack and infrastructure that they have. We'll look at the strategy and leadership alignment to make sure it's there in alignment or no to begin with. We look at the governance, ethics, and risks, because especially when, for example, it comes to a healthcare industry, we need to make sure that we are compliant across different rules and governance. And then with the talent and skill, we also need to make sure that we have the employees aligned in terms of whether they're ready to implement and introduce AI into their tools. And then, of course, the data that we keep going back to make sure that it's something that we can actually work with. So once we evaluate all those, we assign a score to our clients and we see where they stand within the framework, whether they're still crawling, maybe they're walking, maybe they're actually ready to run. So depending on those 5 inputs, we provide a very transparent, basically, picture to the client in terms of where they are now and what they need to do to achieve the goal. Sometimes it happens so that they have really big ideas and they want to achieve a lot, but they're not ready. So we kind of allow them to take the step back and see what actually needs to be done in order to be running. If they're not walking yet, maybe they need to start crawling first. So it's a very good approach in terms of showing them and having them understand that AI doesn't just happen within a snap of a finger, that they do have to prepare themselves and their teams and their company.
Yeah. And I think, the real transformation happens until the company understands where they are and what's actually possible at the current maturity level. And also just realize, like, all these different areas have homework behind them, right? Like, for us, we've lived through this,
Exactly.
right? Like, talent, if I think about talent and skills, like, now we had to approach a new way of doing software, involving vibe coding tools like Replit or Windsurf, obviously on a more of a development side, but we had to have product managers like yourself, even UX UI designers, doing the initial stages of the prototyping, and then having the engineering team work together in a hybrid approach and figure out, how are we going to dance now?
This is exactly.
You're
changing the processes as well. Yes.
And that's from our side, that we have obviously our background is in technology, but I imagine other companies who are not so well versed in technology. This is definitely a key area where I think a lot of homework needs to be done to understand that. So yeah, and I think also that leads to what we have seen in the last year. Obviously there's a lot of data on this as well. McKinsey, put out a report saying that 25% of most of the AI projects from last year were considered a failure in terms of ROI. I think we can even relate that to some of the projects that we initially experimented with at Scopic. And I think overall, the message I can gain from this is AI is as good as the data that you have and as good as the strategy behind it, right? AI is not a tool problem, but a readiness and a business alignment problem. So there has to be initially a very clear measurable value definition. There has to be a really strong foundation with clear processes, with clean data, structured data, with governance, and then it's a cross-functional ownership really of not only IT, but all the different departments that have to have a say need to be involved in the initial planning stages as well. I think a lot of our customers and companies in general have underestimated the operational and the behavioral shifts required for AI transformation. And even the best model, cannot fix broken data, unclear workflows, misalignment expectations. So I don't know if we can share an example, maybe Adele, if you can think of one. I think we have had really successful cases as well for, I think, clients that have been very clear with what they wanted initially, and we have been able to execute and delivered an ROI. I don't know if you want to share one that comes up to mind. I have one in mind.
I do have the one that failed, for example. Not even one, but several. For example, I really like this one with a case when a client was asking, I'm not going to go into details because it's NDA, of course, but they were asking for a problem that they were trying to solve. And luckily, Scopic has done something very similar, but on a much smaller scale, actually. And we did an analysis internally, and we found out that in order to achieve what the client wants to achieve, it's actually cheaper to do it manually to hire people. So it's also, again, investing the time, investing the money, and understanding whether it's worth of the investment, whether the idea that you have behind is can be resolved by AI. Other projects that fail, for example, I know a client who's been wanting to integrate AI since 2019. And at that point, we didn't even have the computing power. We would talk about using PyTorch or TensorFlow and send the requests via API, to GPU so that the computations can be done outside of the mobile application, which we were looking into for. And still, even up to this date, the client is not ready because we don't have enough data to make sure that we can actually do what they want to do. We can achieve the goal that they want to achieve. With regards to successes with AI projects, I'm not sure if you're referring to one of my recent ones.
No, I was thinking more, I think, on a dental orthodontics client that I think he was definitely an early adopter. But what I liked about his approach was he was super clear, because I remember we worked with a PM who's now in my team in sales, but we worked very well in defining, okay, he wanted the core of one of his processes to be reduced in just hours of doing it, from hours to minutes. And he was very clear on the amount of revenue that he expected to extract from it, the percentage of labor expense that he wanted to reduce. And so with very clear guidance, he also knew what the impact would be operationally. And so it was amazing in I think in a lapse of a year, I think over a year, revenue just like woof, like incredible. But because there was a lot of planning ahead and very clear metrics. So again, I think if we can summarize, is making sure that you think about this more from a real business case. It's more than experimentation. It's actually building a business around what this AI project will do, what is required from that, which departments are going to play a role, and how am I going to measure success, right? And again, we go and we stress again, not to sound like a broken record, but foundations do matter. It's like, you need to prepare the soil, fertilize it, or, if not, you won't be able to grow the beautiful garden that you want. And so I think once you really understand that, if you're going to be building something with an algorithmic approach, for instance, you're going to be prepared to have the quantity of data to train the model. And that training of the model needs to have very good structured labeled data. It's incredible. And I'm always surprised to see the amount of customers and clients who just or are not ready. And we think, oh, they may be ready, but they're not. And again, it's not oh, they're not doing it right. Like we have lived the same process internally at Scopic, but it's just something that if you know and we plan ahead of time, we can even devote time with maybe a data scientist to help them structure their databases and whatever they need, right? So I think again, it's just making sure you align on that respect with everything, with what
Absolutely.
requirements you will need.
And I think it's a very, bottom top approach, actually. The leaders should lead by example. They should, show what the goal is and where they want to take the company. But at the same time, they need to make sure that everything is aligned and everyone is aligned. For example, the previous webinar that we had with Scopic, our colleague mentioned that sometimes, and most of the times actually, the reason AI projects fail is because people are not aligned. So there are different expectations of what the tool is and what the problem we're trying to solve, how we want to solve it, what data we're going to use to solve it. So it's very important, and as you mentioned, broken record, but at the same time, we cannot stress it enough to make sure that the clients need to make sure that everyone is aligned and we have that really strong soil, very good one, to make sure that once you plant something, it actually grows and benefits you.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's where you then sit down and say, okay, where do I even start? Where do I want to dig my full feet? And I think that, one of the things that I actually heard from a webinar recently that I really liked was the idea of strategic domains. And that is just thinking about how can AI drive compounding benefits? Like, if we start with AI transformation project that is going to be mainly for sales, maybe that in 2 years will be an operational benefit to it, and so forth. If I can give like an example of a tool that we have internally at Scopic, we decided to work on a tool to help sales reps and also PMs to a certain degree in the discovery phase of trying to have requirements in a much seamless way, faster, be able to produce like almost like a requirement for proposal document and create an estimation out of that, right? So the immediate benefit was better alignment internally between sales and operations, sales reps being able to close or just convert more easily. But over time, what that should do, in theory, is reduce the operational risks of having projects with scope creep, for instance, and having loss in profits. Over time as well, just happier customers because we're delivering a very clear requirement from the start, and they have estimations very clearly on as well in terms of budget. So as you can see, it's compounding, right? It's like building upon the benefit that it initially started for. So that to me is something that most of the companies should be looking for, identifying what's a strategic domain, where can I drive compounding benefits, and the subsequent questions for that is, okay, do we have the foundations for this? How can we measure outcome? Does this solve a real business problem? I think that's a big one, because a lot of the times we want to go with the flashiest idea, the shiny new toy, but is it really solving a business problem? Right?
Exactly.
That's something that I think we've seen time and time again. You don't need a flashy toy. You just need something that's gonna really solve initially a problem. Maybe then it's gonna solve more, and you're gonna build upon that. But I think I would mostly recommend focusing on strategic domains for sure.
And I mean, this is. Oh yeah, never mind.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that this is where the consultation services come into play really well. And sometimes we have clients that don't even understand completely what they want, for example. I know that recently there was a case when the clients came and they said, hey, we have this data, we're not really sure what we want to do, but we're thinking something in this domain, in this field. And then we blew their mind with just a prototype showing them what can be done. Having the data they have, this can be achieved, that can be done. You can save money on this, you can save time on this, you can use then this data to process the other data, etc. So it's very, very important to have these 4 pillars, the compounding benefits, the foundations, the outcome, and the problems, to actually understand and see what the picture is. And I'm really happy that Scopic can actually help clients with that, because they do come sometimes very either overly enthusiastic or lost, and then we can find that common ground to just make sure that they're comfortable with moving forward and having a solution that will benefit their business.
100%. Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. And I think one of the last points that I think is definitely worth bringing to the topic is agents, right? Because I think agents is usually the area where a lot of clients start. They think about, adding a chatbot. But I think that agents have transformed in the last 3-4 months to the agentic platforms, right? And so now it's really thinking about workflows. How are we going to solve repetitive decision-making tasks? How are we going to make a seamless workflow with multiple agent orchestration? It's sort of like, it seems like a magic solution, but it's not unless you have, again, like the right data in the right place, if you have good processes also. So I was looking at, now with Claude, that they have the skills, that database or repository, however you want to call it. It's so cool how you can really just design different agent task into one ecosystem and create like a very cohesive new process from scratch using these skills and agentic platforms. I mean, we have developed obviously one agentic platform ourselves at Scopic, and we have several clients already using it, and it's definitely very promising. But you also find that you need to make sure that the clients understand that they need to be able to have the data in the right place. Like, for instance, if you're thinking that the agent is going to be accessing from a Google Drive or SharePoint, or it's going to get data from the Salesforce or CRM that you have, you need to make sure that the data in those places is in the right it's in the right structure. So I think that becomes even more apparent now that you have these agentic platforms, right?
Yeah, and then they're supposed to be, and then they are already a big thing, especially the multi-agent ones. You mentioned skills. I started recently the program that they have, the courses, But what I found really interesting is that when you have, for example, the multi-agentic approach, you have that one agent that can actually delegate different tasks to other sub-agents. And for example, one will be like a planning agent, and they will break down goals into actual steps that have to be taken. There will be like a work agent. One writes the code, another one calls the API, and then there will be another sub-agent who is like a critique agent who evaluates the outputs and flags risks and issues that can come up. So the agents are here also to stay. The agents are something that is very useful, but it's very important to make sure that the teams are not discouraged by them, that especially developers and working with Scopic, we have such great talents. And from my experience as well, I can tell that sometimes people are not as open to having agents help them and having agents basically disrupt their daily routine and the way they work. So as you mentioned here, for example, as well in the last point, that we need to train the workforce as well. We need to make sure that they're ready to work with agent, that they're ready to implement them in the workflows. And that also actually touches upon the social computing that I think will be growing in 2026 with regards of humans working together with agents and making it much more beneficial, making it much more efficient, and we do need all the talent that we have at the moment, because we still need to make sure that the agents don't just hallucinate and do things that we don't want them to do. But the and orchestration of the agent, exactly, because we know the core
behind that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it'll definitely open up more opportunities that I think people think about agents in general. I think it's going to remove obviously certain things and tasks, but it's going to open more doors. So I think it was also in the McKinsey report that they said that by 2030, it's estimated that all these agent platforms and the redesigning of workflows is going to unblock $2.9, almost $3 trillion in the economy in the US. So it's definitely a space that you want to be in and you want to plan ahead. So having, an agentic studio platform, I think is definitely something to think about for 2026.
Absolutely.
So key takeaways. I think for us in doing this, we just wanted to be very straight, simple. I hope that we were clear in what we wanted to transmit. But in general, it sums up to, AI is here to stay. Let's embrace it. Let's not be afraid. Take out the anxiety. Manage expectations to avoid this bubble mentality, and focus on a narrow and very tactical approach to AI strategy in your organization. Second is foundations do matter. So the data matters more than I think anyone discusses. It does. And where you are, as an organization in terms of AI maturity. And then the strategic domains that we discussed, choosing wisely. If you're going to shop and you're going to go crazy with a credit card, you need to, make sure that you pick your capsule wardrobe that's going to be helpful for multiple seasons.
I love that analogy.
Yeah. So plan around efficiencies, process and re-engineering, customer success, all these different areas that can create that compounding benefit. And then I think for the development side and the companies who have obviously a lot of developers in their workforce, is it's only going to evolve. It's not going to disappear. You're still going to need engineers to take care of the architecture, the patterns, obviously the data, reviewing the code, orchestrating the business needs. That's going to be even more and more prevalent now that we have all these different tools. So building the puzzle together, you still need someone to do that, technically versed, of course. So I think that, you need to embrace it. We are in a very exciting moment, I think, as humanity. We have the capacity to create like never before. So I think it's, you know, taking it on a flip side and really making sure that you just plan. And, you know, I think planning gives confidence, and having people in your company in the same mentality. And so the culture is also important, right? Yeah, I think that those are the things that I wanted to I think have as a key takeaway. I don't know if you want to add anything else, Adele, or you
Very
can
well
introduce.
said, Ali. The only thing that I wanted to add is the fact that, to sum it up, is just we are here to do what we can do with what we have, and thankfully, AI is the tool that can help us. You know, and if we take a step back and just look at what we need to prepare, we'll all succeed at the end and benefit from it.
Well said.
And the giveaway. So we are offering one free rapid prototype for an AI use case. Tell it to your business, guys. So if you have an idea, you know, something that you want to test out and see if it's worth the investment, you will be considered because you joined this webinar. And yeah, you just need to respond in the chat or email after the session.
Awesome. And thank you all for your participation. If you do have any questions, we can answer here briefly. And if not, we thank you for joining, and hopefully this serves you and gives you better insight and preparation, less anxiety, and more enthusiasm towards this 2026 AI vision.
Thank you all.
Thank you.